Nobody is taking a look at a community-based security company. Everybody's out grabbing contracts, and people don't want to spend $300,000 a year for 24-hour guards. And people that are spending it are getting guards that, my butt belongs in this seat. That's not my job. That's not my job. You hired me to do security, right? And there's just no community in that.
I've seen some pictures of your company and the differences they've made in the city. Can you talk a little bit about that and how the changes they've implemented?
We tell a client who has no idea what's coming, trust me. Right? This is going to work. We're going to be weird. We're not going to be like any security guard company you've ever hired. We're going to have things done a different way, but give it time.
It's funny. I've taught my 15-year-old son this. We walk as a family multiple different places. Just the other day, we were at a Christmas kind of thing, but at the Christmas thing, there was a couple individuals that look a little shady. When you're walking alone with a family inside a parking garage and there's some dude holding a beer can, I was like, okay. And he knows exactly what that means. And I usually take the rear, keep the family in between, and then we put ourselves in between the threat and our family. What's going on, y'all? My name is Vince Vargas. I'm the host of the Time to Head North podcast, brought to you by the North Group, security refined by intelligence. Welcome to Time to Head North podcast. I'm your host, Vince Vargas, and today we have one of my good buddies with me, Rob. And I had him on the VNR podcast before, but this is a little different because this podcast is meant for the North Group, which is obviously a security agency or company. And Rob had something really very specific that I thought was really cool, and I wanted to kind of highlight that today during our podcast. But Rob, I think before we go forward with kind of your company that you run and founded, I want to talk about a little bit about your background and your military experience that kind of led you into what you do now. And so if you don't mind, if you want to hit me with a bio of your background for the audience.
Sure, absolutely. So I came to security through an extremely weird way, right? And some guys are eminently qualified to run security because they come through that standard track and it's exactly what you would expect. And I just didn't come that path. I was a Wizzo. I was an F-18 backseater. And then I started doing JTAC tours, as you know, went to some different special operations units, spent a little time at JSOC, and then actually went a completely different path and was a financial manager, right? And got my MBA through the Marine Corps. God bless them. Appreciate that. And then spent another 7 years in the intelligence community. And from that, obviously, we exit Afghanistan. And at the same time, literally just within a couple of months time frame, I had a friend that had an issue down in Silicon Valley. He was an investor, venture capitalist, and purchased a large quantity of land in downtown San Jose. And that place, it looked like the zombie apocalypse had hit, right? And he said, just come down and take a look. He didn't say, please start a security guard company. He didn't say anything like that. Please just come down and take a look. And I went and took a look. I've got 80 to 100,000 spare bodies, right? And that need a job, right? We didn't really have a landing place for the Afghans. And I said, Gary, this is not impossible what you're talking about. This is well within the people that I know, the people that I hang out with. This is well within their wheelhouse. And nobody is taking a look at a community-based security company. Everybody's out grabbing contracts. It's the classical feature of security, right? And people don't want to spend $300,000 a year for 24-hour guards. People don't want to, and people that are spending it are getting guards that, my butt belongs in this seat. That's not my job. That's not my job. You hired me to do security, right? And there's just no community in that. And it's such a simple thing. And it's kind of in our nature. Like if you got a security job anywhere, Vin, you would not step over the piece of trash. You would get to know the client. You would get to know the people that you're seeing every day, right? And that's kind of what we grew up with, right? We grew up in a neighborhood of some sort that everybody knew all the shit that was going on, and we would talk about it, right? So things wouldn't get unbearable because we would head things off at the pass and make sure that what was a molehill wouldn't become a mountain. And that's really just not happening. People just want to book their contracts, get their 5 to 10% because it's a service-based organization, and I just need more contracts, and you've got a butt in a seat. So when you kind of flip that a little bit with the right clientele and with the right guards, you can have this community base where actually I'm charging a premium for our services, but I deliver so much more than just a guard and a seat. And if people would start to look at that more, if you've got a small company that you're starting out in the Midwest, whatever, that opportunity is just wide open right now. And we're finding it's a really untapped market.
Well, what I think some people might miss in the conversation is, who is your employee?
So we do, I would say about 90% of our guard force are Afghan refugees, right? These guys, if they've been around, and we have Afghan generals, and the best they could hope for is DoorDash, because we had no landing spot for them.
That's
right?
what I found to be probably the most unorthodox, but in a good way, a very, I guess, different concept. Like when you first told me, I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh man, that's actually, I think it's brilliant. I think it's almost like a really positive humanitarian response to the unfortunate situation that happened overseas. And you and I know, who've both worked overseas, both had multiple deployments. You build relationships with some of these guys who are in Afghanistan or Iraq, whatever, whether interpreters, whether they're just trusted confidants who or informants, whatever the case. They worked with us, they fought with us.
Yeah.
And then to see what happens later, all the issues and, the organizations that were headed back to Afghanistan to try and save some of our allies, right?
Yeah.
And that was fascinating to me, to see all the different people jump on board and start supporting that. But then to find that there's a company that is hiring them and using them in a positive way, giving them sustenance, giving them money, giving them a career. Dude, I thought that, outside of the rest of the idea of the security company, I thought that is kind of the heart and soul of like really beautiful thought and incredible company that you based it on.
We were solving the problem. So we didn't really look at all the other great things that we're doing, right? We have a problem. We have a solution. We're going to apply this solution with we've got the 80% solution. We're just going to stick it on there right now and make some adjustments as we go, right? We're going to make mistakes. That's fine. You're a new company. You're going to make mistakes. But I have friends. We were all part of those Afghan groups trying to get guys out, right? Trying to get guys out of Afghanistan before the door finally shut and there were no more flights leaving. We were all hustling to try and get guys out. People were tapping everyone they knew to try and find somebody that had some money to sponsor an Afghan to get out. And now they get here and we're trying to sponsor some of the better ones and take care of them. We haven't done a handout, and it took a little while, like 2 years into it now. We've payrolled, not handed out without a plan, but payrolled. They earned this money, over $2 million to Afghan refugees. That's pretty fucking dope. Like, we have our warts, thousands of them, right? There are things, we're always chasing one thing or another that gets messed up, and I get it, but that's significant. And I'm sure there are other guard companies that are, maybe they've paid more to Afghan refugees. I don't know about it. They don't talk about it. But I feel like for a brand new startup, that's a pretty good chunk of change.
Yeah, that's huge. That's
and
huge.
Then take a look at, real quick, just take a look at the Green Beret model, right? You've got 10 or 12 guys, and I love Green Berets for this. It's that they go into a place and they do FID, and everything that happens because they did everything by, with, and through, right? Well, how many American veterans need jobs? How many American veterans need jobs, have great rapport with doing that one thing that we're really good at, right? Working with the Indig force and like getting them to stand up and have like a standard protocol and an SOP and everything that they're used to doing for the last, their entire adult life as an American vet. Come start a city. Come start a section of a city if it's a big city, right? So we're applying jobs for our American veterans as well. And I'm asking you to do something that's in your wheelhouse. Like you and I talked about this. I want you to come and take over a city. You're going to run it the way you want to. I'm going to apply all of the corporate overhead that you need. I'm going to get you uniforms. I'm going to do the training. I'm going to take care of the guard work. I'm going to get them all qualified, do all of the things that are required. You just have to get started. You do have to hustle and go get contracts, but you understand that it's a little bit of a different format. You understand that we're going to charge a premium for what we do. But other than just like a little tweak here and there, you've done what you've done your entire adult life.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is, so I volunteer at a private school here to do armed security. They have several of us hired on, and then I'm just kind of like a substitute. If they need me, I could take some time off of work, whatever the case. And my first day there, I kind of do my own walkthrough of the facility. I look at all the, the exits, the entrances, the look at what they have standard operating procedures already, kind of means of travel for like, if I had to call 911, what would it look like and how far is the response time and all that. And so,
Right.
without them telling me anything, I'm looking at all these
They've
things.
not told you to do any of this.
No, it's just instinctual. It's what I do, right?
Right.
It's what I do in my own household. It's what I do all the time, right? It's just kind of the comfort thing that I understand. And there's another Army veteran there, right? And this guy's squared away. He's like locked on. And I talked to him, and he goes, yeah, man, same thing. He goes, this is a good, here's an issue. And he's pointing out all the issues where he's like, I brought this up as a potential issue. I brought it. And I'm like, dude, it's so funny because I'm sitting here thinking like, do I say something or do I keep it to myself? Because my mind is like, there's so many things we can fix here. And it's a school of children, right? Who to me are precious, or the precious cargo, right? The most precious cargo we can think about in our society. So it's like, now I'm thinking like, man, there's a lot of things we can do even more so, but where's the threshold where it becomes too much for a high school or an elementary in my head? So I'm trying to balance my own years of experience, whether it be through the military, overseas, infantry, also as a prison guard. And it's just instinctual. It just comes very natural to do security.
Well, Vince, take that one step further. And I don't know this for a fact, but let's say you're doing that for one of the big security guard firms. If you went to a place and you saw all these issues and you say, yep, I'm going to run it up the chain, do you think that you would have positive response for, yes, Vince, brand new guard that you're subbing in, please go make all these changes to our SOPs because you see all the gaps and you're the man on the ground right now?
Yeah, no, for a fact that won't happen. For a fact because
absolutely not.
You'll be threatening someone else's career.
Right. Somebody else is getting paid some other amount of money to be some middle person who does nothing at all but tells you to stay in your place. Less effective guard doing what you've done your entire life, and you can't make the change that needs to happen. Yeah,
it's an interesting thing.
Right? It's bananas. And people pay for it.
Yeah, that's one of those things. Like I guess I understand how some states, they don't have armed guards or active police officers in their school systems. But for me, I feel like it's the only obvious thing that we should be doing for all of our kids, protecting them either with armed guards or actual law enforcement. And when people say, oh, do you want the kids growing up in that environment? I was like, well, we're already in an environment where they know there's a potential for a school shooting. They absolutely know for a fact there's a chance. I don't care what grade they're, if they're like 10-year-old, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, they all heard the conversations, heard the news or whatever. Yeah. Definitely high school kids. And so wouldn't you think they feel more comfortable to learn in an environment where they know they're protected by individuals who chose to stand guard for them? To me, there's no obvious decision we should be making, but for some reason we don't.
You're gonna get a plan at best that is a teacher that cares, that really takes this seriously. Some teachers are going to be super annoyed that they have to do this in the first place. Some teachers are actually, when bad things happen, are not going to perform like they're a veteran, right? You just know that it's going to be the case. Somehow that's okay, but taking steps to make sure that never even has to happen, or if it does happen, don't worry about those teachers because I'm going to handle it before it gets through the door or shortly thereafter, as opposed to an hour later. Right? We've already basically broken the barrier to this is something we need to talk about. We just didn't go all the way. And how stupid is that? How stupid is we're going to deploy, but we're going to deploy to war, but we're not going to give you any guns. We're going to prep for some huge defensive measure, but not actually plan. Right? You wouldn't do any of that. You would never do any of that. And somehow that is the standard in our schools.
Mm-hmm. It's always interesting, man. Since I've kind of taken this volunteer job, I just think more and more about it. Like, man, it's something like I enjoy doing security. It's just something that personally I just enjoy it. You know what I mean? You put me at the helm to carry the gun and protect others. And I think that job is always a very special job. I've seen some pictures of your company and the differences they've made in the city. Can you talk a little bit about that and how the changes they've implemented?
Yeah. So, and it's on our side, we tell a client who has no idea what's coming, trust me, right? This is going to work. We're going to be weird. We're not going to be like any security guard company you've ever hired. I'm not saying we're going to be perfect. People hear that and they're like, oh, they're going to be perfect. Nope. Not saying that at all. It's going to be weird. It's going to be different. We're going to have things done a different way, but give it time. Give it time. And I can't even guess the amount of time because we're going to take the steps. We're going to do all sorts of weird shit. Like we're going to become friends with unhoused people. We're going to become friends with cops. Like, you know, I have police officers that have my cell phone number and give me a call directly sometimes. And I have homeless people that I'm friends with. Right? So to take, like, it's going to be weird. I don't need to tell you all the details today. Just trust me on this. But you give it time. And we have, you know, our favorite block down in San Jose, right? It was, you know, you literally have a subway coming down this way and then it goes the other way. And there was a ton of drug deals that was going on that just unfettered, never being stopped. I called the cops. They never do anything. All of the things that you're going to hear, right? Just care enough to do something. And when you do, over time, you change that picture. So what was an empty block that was getting tagged all the time, windows always being broken, one of the better blocks in San Jose right now. People felt comfortable enough to open retail locations, open really nice restaurants. A couple of them were food trucks only, crushing it in the food truck world, had never opened a retail location. Now they have both. Right? So that increases their revenue. There's some place to eat. The place is safer. All of those places can actually just call us and let us know, and we'll respond within 5 minutes max. We'll respond to you within 1 minute, which doesn't even happen on 911 sometimes, right? But you're going to know how far out one of our guards are. And because we have this community-based thought view of security, now we're all splitting the costs of a 24-hour guard. That guard keeps roaming 24 hours a day amongst all the businesses. So I'm really just telling you how far away the guard is from responding, who's there all the time anyway, because you divided all your workload by 4, 5, 10, right? However many businesses you can fit in that model. And I have a before and after picture. It's literally seeing is believing. Because you see this thing and maybe there are 4 or 5 unhoused people there. The next picture are strung up lights. We're throwing a block party. There are 5,000 people there, crushing these brand new retail places that are there that are making a killing in sales. And the whole community is there and they feel safe. They feel safe because they know if they report something, something's going to happen. And they know that when our guards show up, we don't shrug our shoulders and say, that's not my job. Because if you're part of a community, it's everyone's job. And the same thing
that is
school district.
Those changes are all because of you've implemented your security plan with your company.
Yeah. Yep. And how do you teach? It's funny because you get investor types and up above and they're all, you know, they've been to schools, they've got a great background and they can talk about vibrancy, right? There's this whole thing about vibrancy and, you know, to make an investment really work, you really want to increase the vibrancy in an area. How do you explain that to maybe at a max high school education? Hey, on your 8-hour post as a guard, increase the vibrancy here. The hell does that mean, right? But you can dial it down. And what we did is we dialed it down to the 5 senses, right? So if you touch one of the buildings you're guarding and you feel like you need to pour gasoline on it, probably not great score for touch, right? If it smells like piss or it doesn't smell like a great restaurant's close by, probably not a great score for smell, right? So all these things apply all the way through. If you look or if you're listening and you hear screaming, right? Somebody's screaming with their pants off around the corner, you know, that type of thing, probably not a high score for vibrancy, right? But if you just give it a 0 to 2 score on the 5 senses, you've got a 10-point scale for vibrancy. And a place that starts as like a 4 or a 5, you can increase to an 8, a 9, a 10, right? Where you know it's safe, you know people are going to have their clothes on, nobody's like taking a shit in the corner, right? People aren't peeing on buildings. There are restaurants that are close by, so you can have something to go and taste close by that's good. And those retail locations aren't going to open unless they feel like they're safe, unless they feel like they're being listened to, right? So yeah, safety is that. They're not going to invest in a new facade like a great paint scheme on their building if they think it's going to be tagged within 4 hours, right? But when you have a security guard, you have a security guard that's out there with a paint roller, and that tag lasts 15 minutes. Because on his next round, he brings the paint for your building to match and knows how to do it and covers it up. And that spray paint barely probably dried by the time it's covered up.
Where does your team get their training?
So everybody gets the basic guard card qualification for whatever state they're in, whatever municipality. After that, it's internal training. Like, how often are you talking to guards? Like in the hiring process, you should be talking about this. Hey, if you think this is where you're going to come and punch a clock, you're going to have to do a little extra. You know what? I'm going to pay you extra. I'm going to pay you possibly in some areas 25% more than the going market rate to do a base level guard job. But when you see a piece of trash, you're going to pick it up. You know how I know? Because you're going to report at the end of your shift nobody does this. How many pieces of trash did you pick up? How many new tenants did you meet? What's your vibrancy score? It's an extra line for each of those in your guard report, right? So your end of shift report. And guess what? If you didn't, the oncoming guard is going to note that. Hey, dude, somebody emptied out this trash can looking for dinner tonight. Nobody cleaned it up afterward. Did anybody at least make a call to the improvement district, right? To the downtown district to say, if you've got people that can clean it up, which in San Jose they have, downtown Seattle they have, a lot of these municipalities actually have phone numbers or text messages that you can send, and somebody will come and clean up whatever's going on, right? But if it's a 1 or 2 piece, pick it up. And if you don't, the next car is going to know, right? So now there's that accountability just built into the process, right?
I like that.
And you should have cameras. Everybody does. Are they connected? They're not, right? Everybody, like, this company has their cameras. This company has their cameras. They don't want to share. They don't want to, like, hey, there's something going on with a drunk guy 3 blocks down. You could have the same security people on that same feed. So that guard 3 blocks down never makes it to your door. Like, we're doing our job right. If the security bubble increases and increases over time, and you're wondering why security in the first place. Well, you have it. It's working. Right? So that's the type of thing that you need to just build into the culture that you have with your guards so that we do a little extra. That's why you're paying the extra. That's why you're paying the guards the extra.
Currently, right now, you guys are very successful in Northern California. And are you in hopes to grow outside of that state to other states?
Yep. We are just about to close our second or third contract in the Seattle area. We're growing well. You know what was a big difference? As much as I talk about going back to basics and community, get involved with the Chamber of Commerce, get involved with, the Rotary, right? There was a period of time, 10 or 20 years, not a short period of time, where the bigger businesses stopped going to the Rotary and stopped going to the Chamber, right? Because it's a network thing, and basically it's just smaller businesses hoping that you're going to have some hand-me-downs and whatever. Get involved with that community. Hear what it is that's going on there. I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting up here in just basically a city north of Seattle, and they had a police officer there. It was meant to be a nice thing. Have this police officer come talk about all the great things they're doing for the community, and they got their lunch was eaten up right in front of them, in front of their faces. Where you're failing on this, I called and I sat on 911 for an hour and a half. All of the things that setup might not have been what probably should have happened, maybe. But through that, you get a chance to have that discussion and say, well, what did you do? You could do this a little bit differently. And if you had us involved, you wouldn't have had to sit at all on 911. Because there's a difference. And I have time and data now to prove this. I hoped there would be a difference. Now I know for a fact it's a difference. When I call and I say I'm a security guard responding to this area because there was a burglary, that type of thing, I get a faster response out of the police than somebody that says, I'm watching on a camera, somebody just burglarized my place and they're gone. Know that they're gone yet. I'm the security officer that's going to be on the scene. I haven't been there to decide if they're gone yet, but I'm going. And if there's an issue, I'm addressing it. And if they have a gun or if they have a knife and it gets weird, you're probably going to want police there, right? So they're going to send somebody to respond a lot faster. And we're seeing that over time. That's actually true.
Yeah, you start building rapport, right? It's just kind of the able model, build rapport.
Because if I'm calling, it's a no shitter. It's the same thing. I'm sure the police at whatever district, I'm sure that some of the guys you might even be friends with, right? And if you call, it's different than if the second grade teacher who calls 911 every other day, if they're calling because somebody parked in their spot. Right?
So you're in California right now, and you've grown out to, you expanded out to Washington, and you're continuing to expand out to other places.
Right. So just like in the circles of weird, our first contract in Seattle was a car wash. It's the largest car wash in Washington State. They have 50 locations, right? 12th largest in the nation. It's not a small car wash chain. And they believed. That's what it takes, right? Is somebody just understanding you and backing it up with the data, right? I'm not just telling you some bullshit anymore. I've done this in Northern California. This is a real thing. This is how it works. This is how it's going to work for you. So not only did they buy in, but they bought in, opened up the space, started talking to us about their friends that are close by. And now we have like a base of operations, and we have several lily pads because we know pretty much anywhere that we're going to operate in Washington, we have like a get well point pretty close by. Right. And we rally up at one of the local car washes and operate out of there because we're that company secured. And now, same thing with the lily pad ops, just the same way we did in the military. So I didn't invent anything here. All I'm doing is applying it here to corporate security, and it works. I'm telling you it works, right? So now we've got lily pad ops, and why don't we just talk to some of the businesses close by to that car wash over there in Everett, Washington, right? Or Maple Valley or Issaquah or Renton or wherever it is in Washington State. It's outside of Seattle now, but there are businesses there too, right? And totally got it. You don't want to pay $30,000, $35,000 a month for security. Could you pay $5,000 and still have 24-hour security? Because, oh, by the way, here's the next step, right? So I come from the intelligence community. Maybe you can do more than just put a butt in a seat. Maybe you can do more than put a butt in a seat and have them roving around, right? There are tools out there. For F's sake, we're almost in 2025. There are intelligence tools out there, and Steve knows this. North Group does a great job of this, of risk mitigation and the type of corporate security that they do to make sure that, hey, super gold, you want to go to Mexico and your high net worth is how much, and you're not going to take any protection. Have you like really thought about this, right? You can incorporate that. And now people like you that have that base level knowledge can land at a spot, take a look around and say, something doesn't seem right. We should take a look at these things. So now for the premium, you can afford to incorporate some other intelligence tools to help you make better decisions for greater security right there where you're standing.
Yeah, it's crazy when some people don't think about some of the dangers of just traveling. Right, one of my buddies was he's a Major League Baseball player. Right, he recently got robbed when he was with his wife, and they went to dinner. He got robbed of a watch, and it was like a professional 6-man team kind of pickpocket trick. And he said he noticed it, and as he noticed it, he noticed the group, and he just kind of like didn't know what to do and just let it happen. And he was like, if he fought, he knew he was, outnumbered with his wife. Right. So yeah, you made a good choice. But in that same sense, I'm like, but why don't you have an armed guard with you at all times, bro? Like for me, like if you're someone of that stature, you should be thinking about your own protection, especially for your significant other and kids. And there's some people that probably should hire some executive protection type individuals, and
this is not about the watch. It's not about the watch. You being with your wife and having your security exposed and not being the person to be able to take care of the situation, right? It's all of those things. Yeah, so it's not about the watch. Yeah. I don't give a shit if you took a watch, your wallet, your keys. I don't care about that. It's that you let somebody come into your space and tell you what's going to happen with your and your spouse's life. And if you choose, you're just dead right then.
Right. That makes me uncomfortable, right? Like it's funny. I've taught my 15-year-old son this kind of, when we walk as a family multiple different places. Just the other day we were at a Christmas kind of thing, but at the Christmas thing there was a couple, individuals that look a little shady. When you're walking alone with a family inside a parking garage and there's some dude holding a beer can, I was like, okay. And I say, hey, and I look at him and say, hold it. And he knows exactly what that means. And I usually take point. He takes the rear, keeps the family in between, and then we put ourselves in between the threat and our family. But as a 15-year-old kid, he knows this because we've been doing this since he was probably 11, 12, kind of slowly showing him how I posture myself around the family, or I guide my wife to be on certain sides of the street, my daughter. But it was really cool the past couple of days when we've been walking a lot in these group environments, seeing my son see it before me and just tap me, Dad. And I'm like, this kid's on it. We went to a professional hockey game in downtown Dallas, and there's all kinds of people on the street, and I see him taking posturing positions and putting himself between the threat and the family. And those are things that he's learned from me. I don't know, did I take away some of his innocence? Maybe, but also in the time of environment of our world, I also gave him the edge in safety and practical application of using himself as a shield to protect his family, his loved ones, his own girlfriend someday that he'll be protecting and guarding. And so it's really cool to see him know that, but not a lot of people think like we do. In the event that something did happen, we'd be prepared. Whether I'm carrying, usually I'm carrying at all times, so that's always prepared. But at the same time, having a family of 7, it's going to be hard for me to defend everyone. So I hope one of my other sons takes up the support element.
And to your point, you just said it. It's the reality of the world we live in, right? So that the flip side of that reality is, to everyone that's watching or listening or taking notes, you became a harder target.
Absolutely.
Maybe your son isn't carrying at 12. Got it. But you became a harder target, and criminals know there's an easier target right behind you. And it sucks. I get it, right? That we haven't fixed the whole problem of the criminal is out there. But day one today, I need to get my family off target. I need to get my family home safe. I need to do this, right? That's my thing, right? So criminals are smart enough to recognize there's an easier target. It costs me nothing to wait 15 more seconds, 30 more seconds, whatever it is. I'm still going to get mine, right? But it's not going to be me. It's not going to be you. And so that's the mindset that we have. And that, by the way, it's the same concept of expanding the security bubble, right? Because as more and more of us do it, and I'm sorry to rob you of 15 seconds of innocence, but it's out there until we fix it.
Yeah, no, he goes to public school. Trust me, he knows it's. I see him shadow boxing in his school sometimes. I'm like, what are we getting ready for, bud?
Yeah. Just in case, public school stuff. You wouldn't get it, Dad.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I did get it, but my other kids they have wrestling only at his school, not at the private school. So he goes to public school, and hey, man, is gonna make. I'm a public school. You'll be all right.
But every parent is going to reach that point where you don't get it. It's not like when you were a kid. It's like, okay, got it. Keep prepping. Cool.
Yeah, get ready. No big deal.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I mean, I love the concept of what you guys have and what you guys have done. I think there's levels to why I love. Your approach to security is very similar to my approach to leadership, and the leadership equals love model, right? And which is just building rapport, caring, giving a shit. You know what I mean? And that's a very valuable thing to have, because you can't build rapport with the community. You can't get the community invested in you if they don't see that you're invested in them. And so doing that model.
Why would they?
You said something earlier that was brilliant. We said you're even, with those that are unhomed. Right, those individuals that you built relationships with them, how fascinating is it to hear that a corporate security entity builds relationships with those who are unhomed? That's unheard of. Most people just shun them and look past them or brush them off the street. But to build a relationship with them, to say, hey, how can I help you? You know what I mean? And do you need anything this morning? Right? Some of those individuals just want to be wherever they want to be, and that's fine. But building a relationship with them is valuable, because then you have another one set of eyes that's looking out for you as well.
That's right. Everybody wishes, or at some point thought about, being able to work like an intelligence network, right? Everybody also says, hey, why don't you just get a job? Are you going to take somebody that's been homeless for the last 10 years and say tomorrow you're going to start a 40-hour work week? No. If you want them off the street, why don't you start working with them? Why don't you start paying them for a little bit of intelligence? Why don't you start getting to know them a little bit so that maybe they feel comfortable enough or bold enough to apply for a job with you, right? If you want them to get a job, then give them the fucking job. Work with them in the scope that they're able to work and say, okay, you know what? Why don't you just come shadow a couple times and let's see if you're ready to start taking on a job role, right? So I'm still working on it around here, but down in San Jose, I'm part of PAT. I'm on the advisory board for PAT, which they take unhoused people, they give them a place to live, they work them back into the working community, they help them get jobs. And I'm part of that advisory council so that I'm telling them I want to hire the people that you think are ready for a job. Totally get it. You're going to jump out the door and grab 40-hour work weeks. We'll work with them. I'm going to get them their guard card. I'm going to pay for their training. I'm going to make sure they're up to our standard. And who better to go talk to the next homeless person or the unhoused person, wherever they are, than somebody that's had that experience.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, there's no way you slice an apple that says, I'm the right guy for this job everywhere for all the unhoused people in Seattle.
Yeah.
Right? If I walk up like, hey, buddy, I get it. You were going to tell me to eat shit, right? But if somebody that they know that used to be in that exact same position walks up to them and says, hey, you got this problem, you got this problem, you got this problem. I know you do because I did. And I'm in this position now. But I'm guarding this building and I've got a job now. I need you to move across the street.
That's crazy. I mean, it's humanity, right? Like, what are we doing? Why haven't we been trying to do this model for so long? It's the old way of like being a security force as a tyrant doesn't make sense anymore. Like it's almost like that's part of a use of force continuum, right? It's part of a use of force model, but that's at the latest threshold where you have to engage, right? Where you have to, get ready for whatever is going to happen. Yeah. But there's so many levels before to get to that point that you can manage any situation. It's like the de-escalation model is almost thrown out, but it should be there more often than others, right? Like for some reason, we don't talk about that as much. And there should be like build rapport, be a courteous person, be a good citizen.
Right. Just be a good citizen. And quite honestly, your presence is a de-escalation level. And we need to embrace that more as veterans and as security guard owners, as security company owners, right? So by the time they see Vince, oh shit, I've escalated to Vince level. I need to get the fuck out of here, right? Or maybe I'm not going to commit this crime today. It's the same thing with me. It's the same thing with half the friends that we know that either are guards or are running security companies, right? If you see this face, you know it's escalated to this specific point, and you don't want to. You don't want to have to escalate to me or you, right? So you can't do that if your entire guard force is made up of threat level U.S. veteran in your face.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
but if you incorporate the population, this is how you get to where you want to go.
I learned a lot about that working in the prison. Working in the prison, you learn a lot of how to talk to a group because you're outnumbered every single day you're inside those pods.
Every day.
Yeah, dude, it's me and 40 of them, and I have a radio. You can't go in there, bust some chops, and being the tough guy all the time because that's how you get. Right. That's how you get stabbed.
Yep. And
so
if they want,
that's where I learned how to talk to the group. That's where I learned how to communicate, de-escalate, and also one of those things where you find who runs the pod. That's who you go to make big changes.
Yep.
You guys have that
corporate structure inside.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to have that similar thing has to happen in the real world. I've never managed anything like that as big in security, but I'm sure there's people you just have to be. You get to them, you get to their ear, then all of a sudden everything starts to fall in place.
Because we've had hundreds of lessons along the way. Like I said, we're not perfect right out of the gate. We've made some errors. We've learned some things along the way. There is a thing as too friendly, right? Yeah. Because if you're too friendly, and I'm sure you saw this in prisons, if you're too friendly, you became the safe spot to threaten. Because that's my homie. So if I'm on a bad trip or something to that effect, I recognize that face. I know that they're not going to bust me up because they're being nice. They're playing their nice.
That's huge in the prison. Yeah,
Right.
that's hugely
Still
crazy.
a
Like,
respect basis in there.
it's
And
the
it's
same
still
as the dad model. It's like the dad. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm your dad, not your friend. You know,
Right.
it's like
Right.
there is a threshold where I will have to, be dad. So take it easy.
It's a tone in the book. It's a voice. It's all of the things. And when any of those pop in your family, they know this is dad, right? I've gone dad mode. So same thing applies in the security force. Same
That's
thing.
awesome, man. I absolutely love it, man. Tell me what you think a lot of corporate companies could do to help their own security. Is it just that model? That's what makes you guys different, right? Is that whole community approach, that whole approach?
Yeah. So really just, but budgets are not cut to change, right? Budgets are cut for, you're going to spend this amount of money for this thing. And that thing could be insurance reasons. We absolutely have clients that tell me I have to have a 24-hour guard here. Totally got it, for insurance reasons, right? It's like a fire watch type of thing. If you're in construction or if you have a residential area and they require, the HOA might require you to have 24-hour security. There are things that apply. However, maybe you are that 24-hour body. But if something happens, would you like 4 other guards to show up here? Got it that this needs to be an anchor point. Maybe while that 24-hour guard that's required to be at that desk for insurance reasons, maybe they have security cameras up. Maybe you'll allow more security cameras. Maybe it's almost 2025 and there's AI that we can incorporate so we know which camera to look at because you set invisible boundaries on that shit, right? All sorts of these things can work in there. And then you know what? That small business next door maybe doesn't think you're such an asshole anymore. Because when something happened, you were able to alert them because they don't have the bodies to be able to afford 24-hour security. And maybe they're divided by 5 or 10, right? So we have a second guard that's roving around, but when something happens to you and you need more than one body, would you like that kind of response for a couple $1,000s more per month? We're not talking about a whole second body that's another 300, 350 for you. I'm talking about response capabilities, which we offer in our package. And I'm not going to be there all the time. If you don't have a 24-hour guard, but I can just do response, right? You need to tailor your menu basically for the clientele that you have. But that's how you do it. If you're a big corporation, maybe some of your cyber budget is going toward intelligence tools that would actually help more for straight line security. And you can cross some of those things over there. And oh, by the way, your janitor, hate to say it, probably is going to have less work because instead of just looking at the piece of trash and saying, that's not my job, we don't do that. So your common areas, your most patrolled areas are going to come clean, right? And just what you're doing for your employee workforce, it's helping their mental health. No bullshit. We're seeing it in both places right now where it's kind of neat. The employees are kind of bragging on their security guard companies, and that doesn't happen.
That's cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the shift manager that comes in the morning and typically either has to move people or all the trash that they left behind and all that other stuff. And they walk in and it's safe and it's clean. And if they didn't feel great because maybe they're young, maybe they're inexperienced, but they texted a number and said, I'm getting out of my car in 2 minutes and I need to go to that door. And we know what it is because it's our client. And a guard just happens to be standing there when you get out of your car. And you know that from your vehicle to that door, nothing's going to happen.
That's cool.
And you're not paying for a 24-hour guard for that to happen.
Yeah.
You're improving the mental health of your workforce. How much is that worth?
It's valuable. Yeah.
Right.
I know.
So
if it was my wife and she had that capability to feel safe, yeah, that's perfect.
Right.
Rob, tell me where people can find you if they're interested in looking at your company and potentially bringing you on board.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at eagletechnologies.org. We're licensed in more states that we work. So you never know. Give us a call. But if we're not licensed, I'll get licensed. I'll find an American veteran that wants to run that city. I will set up everything that we do. It takes a couple months sometimes, but we'll get the right guard unit set up. We'll provide all the training and education that you need. We'll do all the licensure. We'll provide all the uniforms. We'll get to where you are.
Dope, man. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. And again, thanks for listening to another episode of Time to Head North. We'll see you later.